Hello, everyone, and welcome to this afternoon's edition of The Boardroom. As always on this show, we're meeting with business minds and we're learning everything there is to know about the variety of different sectors and how they are coping post-COVID. We are live on Facebook today, and we would love to put your questions and your comments to our interviewees. So if you have anything that you'd like to ask them, please do add your comments and questions below. If not, don't worry, this will be streamed back on who'swho.mt, Malta's leading business portal. Now, today's conversation is all about education, a sector that was hugely affected by COVID, of course, with parents needing to stay home and homeschool, schools being closed, corporations not being able to carry on with training. So we're meeting three different people from across the sector. The people with us today, we're very honored to have Bernadine Mizzi, who is the director at Chiswick House School and St. Martin's College. We have Charles Theuma, who is the principal at St. Martin's Institute. And we have Robyn Pratt, who is the MD of Impact Consulting. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Boardroom.
Hi. Hi there. Hi.
So, Bernie, I'm going to come straight to you and just get a little bit of understanding, please, about how a school, obviously with such young students attending, obviously so many different parents who have so many different requirements, how you were hit at the very start of COVID and how you were able to cope.
Okay, so as you can imagine, we were hit very badly and very quickly. We had just been back into school after the beginning of the second term, and then as soon as we knew that we couldn't cope with parents coming from all different countries that were already, recording many COVID cases, and in fact, it was the independent sector, our schools, that actually closed down first in Malta. We closed down because we knew we couldn't cope with the situation. And then in a matter of 3 weeks, I think it was the longest, was 3 weeks, we had to go from a physical environment to a virtual one. As you can imagine, this impacted all stakeholders enormously. Let's start with the parents. The parents were impacted enormously for the simple reason that they had to be home with their children. All of a sudden, if people had work, if people were in different companies doing all sorts of jobs, they had to be home. At least one of their parents had to be home to stay with the children. The children also were impacted enormously. As you can imagine, the very, very young children were impacted the worst and the most. As children got older, they got better and quicker at adjusting to a virtual environment. But as you can imagine, that was also very tough for the children, and you needn't even ask what it did to the teachers. We had already, you can just imagine, we had an IT review happening only in December, and we had a plan that was going to take us to a certain level in over 3 years. Well, what we had planned for 3 years had to happen in 3 weeks. So you can imagine what that meant to teachers. Some teachers were totally frazzled by this. Some people, especially the ones who were not upskilled enough at the time, had to go through a lot of very fast training to be able to do this. So it shook the living daylights out of us.
Well, incredible insight there, Bernadine. Thank you so much for that, getting us into the conversation there. And Charles, coming over to you, obviously the university level education will have been hit differently. Obviously, you are representing an international organization here in Malta. Perhaps you can give us a bit of insight in how you took things online.
Well, I think we were rather lucky. Throughout these past 20 years, we've been very much advanced in embarking on technological projects to be able to be continuously in contact with our students. Obviously, unlike Chiswick House School and St. Martin's College, our students are emerging adults, so 17 and upwards. They're very independent in themselves. They travel, especially this is a phenomenon that we're seeing in these past couple of years, that they travel extensively, probably because of low-cost airlines, they travel over weekends. And obviously, we have been using platforms such as Moodle for these past 10 years. And already we had this, one could say, culture that everything is based on a technological platform. The difficulty obviously was how easy was it going to be to shift from a face-to-face lecturing environment over a weekend, because we had only a weekend, to go into online lecturing. Unlike all the other schools in Malta, schools, universities, etc., we did not take up packages such as Zoom, such as Teams, etc., because we knew there was a steep learning curve for our students and our staff. And in fact, this is lucky because we teach computer games, development of computer games in St. Martin's. We knew that there was a free platform out there called Discord, where I would say 90% of our students already knew extensively. Because when they were playing games, they were communicating all around the world using this platform, Discord. So we did half a day teaching for our lecturers, and we decided over a weekend to move into this platform, Discord. And therefore, we could say that it was very, very successful. Students loved it because they could attend lectures in their pajamas instead of having to change and have to commute in the congestion every day to come to class. Lecturers at first, especially certain subjects, I don't know, accounts, mathematics, were a bit apprehensive how easy it's going to be able to communicate online. But in general, I would say, the experience was very positive. We wouldn't like to extend it. We'd prefer to have that personal contact with students. But now we know that we always have a fallback. Even sometimes we are thinking of changing our tutorial systems, for example, being smaller groups, and this will be able to do them in the comfort from our home as lecturers, and even students will be more relaxed at home to be able to do. So probably the future is going to see a more of a blended classroom rather than purely either having a distance learning type of system where it's all online or else a face-to-face. I think we will see a lot of this blended programming coming in.
That's so interesting, Charles. Thank you for that. And Robyn, coming over to you to talk a little bit about the corporate sector now, because of course that's where you provide your training, working with fully fledged adults who are out in the market, providing various services to clients and wanting to upskill, and of course to corporates that want to upskill their operations. So again, we're used to a training room for something like this. We're used to bringing people together. Often there's a team building element to something like this. What did it look like for you, and how was your business impacted?
Yes, I think as Charles and Bernadine were saying, Joe, that obviously, when it all happened, it was so sudden. So that initial shock was something that I think people took at least a couple of weeks to become accustomed to. But what I found, just as Charles was saying, that there was a tendency to consider how we could do this differently. And Zoom has become my new best friend. When I first started doing webinars and things, I was thinking, oh, how do I do all this, and feeling very uncomfortable with it. But what I've found is that I'm able to, as a trainer, have been doing more probably coaching and support via online, but it doesn't take the place of face-to-face. So as Charles was saying, I think this blended approach is going to be a new trend. I also think that there's obviously been just a plethora of new content that has come online for individuals to be able to really support themselves in sometimes relearning whole new concepts and subjects, because everybody has gone online. I'm sure we're all bombarded, to be honest, on a daily basis of new courses, new programs that you can access online. And so I think that with all major situations like this that come like COVID as presented us with, there are new trends that emerge. And I think in the education sector, it's very much that people before who were averse to online training and online learning have realized that actually there are very much positives about it. And I think the other side of things is with people having, there are potential with people that have that ambition and drive to grow, that they have then become accustomed to be able to search for new opportunities to learn. So whilst definitely the training and education sector from a corporate perspective, facilitators of training have definitely suffered. I was just talking to someone today. The sector is really needing to think on their feet and think differently about how they're delivering training. But I think what is emerging is that there will be a new trend going forward in this blended or online training in the corporate sector.
Absolutely, and that carries on nicely, Bernadine, with what you were saying. And how do you think that schools at younger levels are going to cope with this? Is this something that you are going to embrace going forward?
Yes, definitely. First of all, I'd just like to continue on what Robyn and Charles have mentioned. After the initial shock, we got into activation very fast. I had just read something from the Harvard Business Review, and it said, act with urgency, act with transparency, and act by, head on, meet all your problems. And basically, the first thing we had to do was to make sure that we communicated very well. So we organized webinars immediately for every single stakeholder. So I actually met up with every single parent group once a month, with every single staff group once a month, and with all the students from level 5 up once a month. Like that, we kept our communication going brilliantly. Our IT review team just went into a wonderful 24-hour job where they got all the IT masters going. These IT masters, so it's a sort of distributed leadership model which we used. The IT masters were out there. They worked with every single group and every single department of the organization, and they made sure that they upskilled everybody to be able to give live online streaming lessons with some of the staff within a week, with some of the staff within 2 weeks, and with some of the staff within 3 weeks. But the good news was that we had some of the stakeholders, being our elder children, the children who are at secondary level and at sixth form level, who actually flourished. Many of our kids actually really did love the online change. And therefore, as Robyn and Charles said, we've learned a lot over the past few weeks. We've learned that some people have actually improved their performance thanks to this way of working. We've seen some staff members, and we've also given parents a chance to get used to this. And we've just had a 360 survey, and the results have been extremely encouraging. Definitely, as you say, Joe, the group that were impacted negatively, in my view, were the very young children. And what we did to address it immediately, and this was the work of one of my great leaders at Chiswick, was that we immediately put children into smaller groups. There was no way children could be engaged, young children, so I'm talking about children age 7 and down, could be engaged online. First of all, a lot of the times we advocated less screen time. So it was quite hypocritical of us to actually say we want them now on screen. So it was difficult, but what we did was we kept it very short. We had quite a few, but shorter and smaller groups. So like that, teachers could engage with the younger children. But having said that, if you see the research across the whole world is saying that young children should be in school because of the physical attention, because of their ability and their necessity to socialize. So yes, small groups, shorter time, if ever again, but we probably will go for a hybrid model that will look like having all our youngsters in school every day.
Okay. Thank you, Benny. And Charles, coming to you on that, I mean, did you find that students flourished? Were there students that preferred this new way of learning? And do you think that it's something that should be incorporated? And beyond that, is there data, obviously you're part of a wider organization internationally, that suggests that this is a great way to learn and that we should take from it?
Well, data, no, there isn't data, because we're still in the middle of the COVID pandemic for data to start coming out, and we can start really assessing the benefits or the problems of the system. One has to be very careful. Being at university, is not just learning. Being at university is also building relationships. And especially in Malta, university life is very, very important to build the ability to work with others. So if we're going to move in the direction where we start shifting higher education on self-study or distance learning or online learning methodology only, I think no, we will be making a disservice for the generation that has to cope with this type of learning. I have some reports open here on my computer. I refer also to some of the PISA studies that carry out. And one of the biggest problems that we face when we are therefore inheriting students into tertiary level education is exactly because the students are very knowledgeable in the different silos of their subjects. But then we find that they are extremely weak in learning on their own, in understanding what's going on around them, in applying what they've learned academically into their lives. And to answer your question, I think that this is going to be a very positive tendency because, as Bernadine mentioned, I have a daughter who is also a student of hers. And the ability of these youngsters, 13, 14, 15, 16-year-olds, to just cope with the technology as if they're just going to get a cold drink out of a refrigerator. It's the teachers who found difficulties in organizing things. It's not the students. This means that in future, even more so, these generations are going to play around with technology as if it's an extension of their lives, as if it's nothing for them. That is very positive because already we've been seeing trends without making any ads, but most of it is free anyway. We have a brilliant system called Coursera, which provides even up to degrees, master's degrees, and short courses from all over the world, from top universities all over the world, free for people who want to learn. We as academics follow many of these Coursera programs, even in the subjects that we are experts in, because sometimes you learn as well how Harvard is presenting them, or how Northumbria or how University of London is presenting them. So there is this really, and I think you did refer to it, this gold mine of learning, which is available out there. And I think that this pandemic itself now has made people understand that this is also a great way to educate yourself. It is also very important that we realize that lifelong learning is a state of fact. It's no more, I do 21 years of schooling, and then, as we used to say when we were children, we burn the books. You never burn the books. At 21, you want to have more books then, because it's a lifelong. You get into pension and you still want to learn more, and you go to do a course when you are 63. So I think all this will affect. We haven't seen any positives. We haven't seen any negatives. So students who are able continue to be able with the pandemic, with the online learning. Students who were a bit of laggards, as usual, we managed to use the tools to get them upstream. But no, my personal experience and my colleagues' experience, we didn't have the issue of losing out students because of online learning, no.
Okay, thank you. Robyn, you like me, I know, are very fascinated by the sort of tactile part of corporate learning, how we bring soft skills and how important soft skills are, and how often we find that people don't have the required level of soft skills in certain things when you're out there in the market. Do you think that soft skills can be taught in an online way, or are we going to be missing out on that side of corporate learning?
Yes, it's a good point, actually, Jo. And I've been doing a lot of life coaching since last year through a gentleman called Bob Proctor. And I guess before doing this, I may have questioned a lot, but I've been doing a lot more self-development, coaching and support over this last 4 months than ever. And I think it depends on the person. And since we've actually gone back, I have done probably 3 or 4 training programs face to face. It is very different. You're actually looking at a room full of people with masks. So there's not just the online versus the offline. It's actually how having to get a bigger room with social distancing, monitoring all of the things that are going on with regards to the increased hygiene regulations as well need to be considered from this training. So what I found was, with regards, for example, to a service culture program, when you've got 50 people sitting there with masks on, you're not going to get the same effect either. So you have to really change your thinking and the way that you're delivering. So I think it's, as we're all saying, the education sector, there is a real evolution in how can you help people of all mindsets to be able to have the same level of growth and learning. I think this has actually been a more positive experience because they feel more comfortable sitting in the safety of their own home, in their own room, on technology. But for others, it's not. And so I think that facilitators, learners, educators are going to have to be more mindful of the people, what is the final outcome that's required, and thinking about all of the various elements that goes into the overall learning experience to make, to deliver on the actual expectations, the learning output. And that was something that really sort of opened my eyes. I've been thinking about online versus face-to-face, but face-to-face even is not the same because you've really got to spread people out. You've got, it's a bigger room. All of these sorts of things will go towards how to consider to deliver the learning output that's required.
Certainly. Thank you, Robyn. And Benny, coming back to you, I mean, again, now we're talking about the future. Do you think schools are going to go back in October? Do you think that there is the risk of a second wave? I mean, today we're seeing that we have an imported case coming in, and we're just learning this before the show started today. So, do you have different plans in place for what October could look like for your students?
Well, yes, of course we do. As you can imagine, one very good thing that's happened over the past few months is that all the different sectors have come together, and we're working on a national working group that is looking at the future, as you can imagine. At the moment, there are 5 different scenarios being worked at. To be honest, our school is looking at 3 different ones. And 3 different ones that could be sort of looked at quite differently for different age levels. I think this is really important. There is no such thing as one size fits all. And I think we need to differentiate between age groups, between what the possibilities are. I mean, what's the point of looking at a hybrid situation if all the social partners in Malta don't come together and decide that people can work from home? It's useless thinking about parents working from home if the social partners do not agree to do that. So what's the point of wasting time? So what I say is this: at the moment, we're looking at 3 possibilities. And it's a very difficult summer for us because we usually, plan budgets and things for 1 scenario, not 3. So we're looking at 3 or 3 adapted. So either totally physical, but with all the physical distancing that our medical consultants give us. And we are very lucky that I have 3 people I consult almost on a daily basis, because of course we have to keep all children safe and all of our staff safe. And therefore, we are never going to take risks with either group. And the other thing is, we're physical, but with some sort of distancing, do we need to do some different things to our premises? And who's going to pay for all these costs? I mean, it's no joke. The other possibility is, as we said, to do a hybrid. But what does this mean? There are many, many different models across the world. I've been very fortunate in that I'm part of quite a few networks around the world, and I've been in contact on many webinars, for example, in South Africa and in the US and in the UK. And they have, shared some wonderful examples of models So you could have some children being at school on 3 days a week and others on another 2. You could have some levels being in school in the morning, others in the afternoon. But of course, you have to see what sort of an impact this is going to have on parents, but also on our teachers, who have been absolutely amazing in learning new skills very quickly and coming on board. But having said that, there is a limit to what you can expect people to do. So that would be, the hybrid model would have to, would need a lot of training, a lot of preparation, and quite a lot of forward thinking. The other would be obviously going back to the distant learning approach. But having said that, we've learned, as Charles and Robyn have both said, we've learned a lot along the way. And many of our staff have understood now that even when you talk about distant learning, you have to talk about online and you have to talk about offline. Some of the best articles I've read have said that if you want it to be successful, you actually have to get the balance right. If you don't get the balance right, you cannot overdo it with online streaming. You cannot overdo it with offline learning. But certainly for the different age groups and also the different groups, you've got to work perhaps differently. So it's going to be quite a difficult and complex thing to decide. I want to mention one group of kids who have really sadly suffered the most. And I think it's not only the young ones, but the children who had special educational needs. Some of those children have not got their needs, totally addressed. I mean, it is very difficult to be able to get an autistic child to sit in front of a screen for a full hour. I mean, you cannot get sometimes an autistic child to sit in front of a teacher for a long time. So I think we need to be very, very careful and make sure that we're addressing all these needs. The last point I'd like to make on this point is, yes, as we plan going forward, we must plan for these children who have special needs, but we also have to plan for vulnerable staff members and also for vulnerable children of other types, perhaps physical vulnerability. In that case, then what are schools going to do? Do we just leave them out? Of course not. If it's going to be distance learning, we're going to have to be able to prepare for these children and these staff members too.
Absolutely. And Benny, just staying with you just a little bit longer on this one. I mean, I'm fascinated by how you're going to get 4-year-olds and 3-year-olds to social distance. So obviously there is a lot to think about there. But sort of the communication from the authorities on this, I mean, is it very, very crucial that people are communicating, that you're understanding between you how quickly things are developing? I mean, I hear from our conversation that there are so many questions still that we don't know the answer to, that we won't know the answer to for a while. I mean, how quickly are you expecting to have to adapt when September, October rolls around?
Okay, we're actually working on the possibility. It's very difficult, as you can imagine, but we're actually working on the possibility of, first of all, we are sticking to the very strict rules that were the protocols that were set for childcare. And childcare gave us a very definite and specific distance. I don't like calling it social distancing because I don't believe in that. I call it physical distancing because I think there is a difference. And I think we are definitely going to be sticking to what the medical and health authorities are telling us. Obviously, the authorities have sent other protocols, but sometimes there haven't been, shall we say, the specifics put down. Whatever it is, I think every single organization has to take its own responsibility. I think the authorities have to give you, obviously, the benchmark, and you have to, obviously, subscribe to that. But if, as a school, we were to decide that we want to be a little bit stricter than that, then therefore we have every right to do so. And my organization happens to be one of those. Having said that, what we did do, which I really recommend to other people to a certain extent, is to try things out. We usually run a very, very large summer school with about 600 kids. We didn't want to do that, A, because of the situation, and B, because we would rather not have run it at all. Having said that, though, we needed to run it on a smaller scale because we wanted to test certain procedures. For example, now they have to, have their temperature taken. The person who brings the child to school has their temperature taken. We have to sanitize hands. We've got to make sure feet are sanitized too. So all these things are being put in place next week. But obviously in childcare, they've been in place for some time. But obviously, we want to make sure that we can understand what the difficulties are to make sure that when we scale it up to bigger numbers, it can work.
Wow, so a lot to think about. I don't think it's going to be a particularly quiet summer for you, Bernie, at all. Charles, coming to you, something I wanted to sort of touch upon. We briefly spoke about the wealth of information that's come onto the internet in the past few weeks and months. Obviously, massive content generation around learning. For anybody that is looking to upskill online at the moment, how can they be sure of the quality of what they're getting?
It's quite obvious to me. It should be very obvious, because the sources of online learning that we have come from, I would say, the top 100 universities worldwide. And everybody knows who these are. And therefore, that type of knowledge that one is assimilating from these sources is, I would say, really a goldmine. I wish when I was 20, I had these resources. So I don't think that it is an issue, personally. Obviously, like any other product that is available online, the advice is always to check, double check, triple check, to make sure, especially when you're paying, that you are paying for the right type of product, the right type of service. Everybody will have testimonials. You check the testimonials. You ascertain yourself that what you are consuming is correct. I mean, yes, I see your point. Like, there is fake news. There could be trainers who are saying that they are trainers, but they are not worth what they are saying. If I may, I would like to make a point, which I think is worth mentioning: examinations. We've spoken a lot about the process of learning, but we haven't in any way spoken about how we are measuring that learning. And this is something very interesting, very close to my heart. I loved this pandemic for this reason, in that no more students, at least with the University of London and at St. Martin's, no more are we testing students for memory. Because this year, all exams are being carried out at home. So it's an open book exam. There's no more having to memorize dates, having to memorize authors, having to memorize names of articles, which here we have Robyn is an expert in corporate. No one at their place of work keeps on memorizing these things, because they know where to search to get them, right, as references. And actually, the focus of the exams now is on your understanding, on your logic, and on your ability to argue a case. And that, for me, is brilliant. I hate examining kids simply because they can memorize a whole book over a fortnight. They do an exam, they get the grade day, next day they have forgotten everything. That is not education. Education is the ability to assimilate knowledge from all around you, from all the people around you. Yes, gauging to see that that knowledge is really structured, really good knowledge, what you require, and then be able to apply it. And I sincerely hope, in fact, I've already written to the University of London about it, that this system of examinations will continue post-COVID. Because personally, I loved it. It may sound for us, probably all of us did, the normal exam, the 3-hour exam, sitting at a desk in a hall, with invigilators walking all across to make sure that you don't copy or whatever. We all know what type of stress these exams provide you. To be fair, my students also face stress, because suddenly they said, I don't know what my examiners are going to expect out of me now. Are they going to expect the thesis, sort of? I've got all this time to research and that. But actually the results are extremely positive. We could see that students were more relaxed and were able to perform much better in their examinations.
Fantastic, Charles. I mean, certainly I, for one, would be much more comfortable functioning in that sort of environment. And I, like you, hope that it is something that we can take from this forced change that we've gone through, that we're more sort of flexible about the way that people are assessed and more realistic when it comes to what the real world expects from them as well. And Robyn, moving on slightly to talk about the future, we have seen support come in from the government for corporate learning.
Yes.
There are going to be incentives in place for companies now to upskill, hopefully in skills that we are lacking from. We often hear employers talk about skills gaps, that perhaps we're educating people in certain things that are no longer required as much, but equally that there are some very, very important skills now needed by the real world that we are not giving them. So what would you say perhaps to corporates that are thinking, okay, I have this opportunity to upskill, where should I start?
Well, I think to what Charles and Bernie was saying, that now more than ever, we need our people to think for themselves, take initiative, be mindful that, yes, things are changing, but it means that you need to consider how you can do things differently. And you know, obviously, having increased knowledge and understanding helps deal with lack of knowledge and understanding, which can lead to increased fear and anxiety. So having more understanding of what is happening and how to deal with these things, I think, is very important. So I would say to those organizations that now that this opportunity is here, for, you know, I have a big passion for the hospitality industry, which is very much my background, and anything to do with service. Obviously, people can say, but, you know, we need to do on-the-job training. But we also need to ensure that we've got the right attitude, and we can do that with helping them to understand the importance of upskilling and being the best version of themselves. Now more than ever, we need to be mindful of the safety of our guests and the safety of our colleagues. So I think that with this opportunity to upskill, we really need to take advantage of it to ensure that we are providing a quality experience, which we've been talking about for our country at least for a long, long time. This is a great opportunity to take advantage of that. And, you know, there's going to be a lot of competition around the world for people who are traveling. So if we can be genuine and authentic in delivering an improved quality of customer experience, and we know that delivering a quality customer experience comes very much from having the person within having the confidence to deliver it and the knowledge, and they will be able to learn that skill or teach themselves that skill. But the basis of it all is having the ability to think in the right way. And I think that mindset training, really being able to, you know, I agree with what Charles was saying. If we can develop these people who have the ability to think for themselves in a logical way, to be able to process in a way that makes sense for them and for the people they're serving, makes a lot of, you know, so much sense. And I think that this is a great opportunity, and we really need to take advantage of it in the right way, and in helping our people to be able to better cope.
Absolutely. Well, great advice there from you, Robyn. And I'll come to you each finally in turn as we start to wrap up. Perhaps just to share some advice at this point with anybody that's watching, whether that's your peers, so people working in the sector, or perhaps companies thinking of the future of education for their workforce, or perhaps their workforce's children and how everyone's going to cope. If you could just share your final thoughts.
Well, I think obviously what this has taught us is how important it is to think of everybody's well-being. We already had a structure in place, we called it Leading a Meaningful Life, where we worked with all our staff members about how important it is to be self-aware and how important it is to keep sort of a growth mindset in place. I think that really served us in good stead. I think the fact that we already had structures that looked at the well-being of kids, the well-being of staff members, and also sometimes even parents, helped us get through it. And I think the biggest factor that helped us get to the end of this, or if it is the end, I don't know about the end, but it get us through these first few months at least, was the fact that we were very well connected. I think connecting with all your stakeholders is key. I think being very transparent and very authentic is very, very important. And really, really caring about everybody in your organization, I think, is a starter.
Thank you, Bernie. Charles?
I will end up with this thought. The workplace now is going to change totally. I think it's actually 20 years late. I had expected that the workplace would change with the new millennium. We had all the infrastructure, the internet was in place, the software was in place, but society did not change. We are still, our mentality with work, most of it is still industrial mentality. We have to be supervised, we have to do what the supervisor tells us, and the supervisor has his manager, etc. This now is going to disappear because already organizations had to rely on people working from home, and therefore the shift has shifted from remuneration based upon time spent at the office to your productivity in your own time. And therefore education has to follow suit, because we as educators are the trainers, the developers of human beings ready to follow their career. Now, if their career is going to change, if the workplace is going to be very different, we have to change as well. Schools, institutes, universities have to change as well. And I remember, I know at the time now, nearly 30, 35 years ago, when I used to lecture in information technology, informatics, I used to say that we had the right information to the right people at the right time. That's what IT used to provide. And when I used to tell my students at the right place, they used to laugh at me. I told them, no, you could work in a garden, you could work at the beach. They used to laugh at me because we didn't have smartphones at the time. Today, it's all there. And even with education, you can educate yourself when you need it. Sometimes we learn things too early, and we forget it when we need to use it. Whilst the mantra today is learn as you need it. What you need, you learn and you practice. Okay, so that is my conclusion for today.
Wonderful, Charles. Really, really great information there. Thank you. And finally, Robyn, we come to you.
Yes, I think that, out of many of the great disasters, if you like, through history, new economies are being created. And I think that what I'm looking to, this has opened, at least from my perspective and speaking to other educators, on an international level. We have the potential to deliver programs internationally. And to what Bernie was saying, the sense of community, not just at a local level, but at an international level, with organizations coming together, sharing, creating webinars to help inform their members. The Malta Chamber of Commerce, for example, has created so much wonderful content and sharing, and I think that we don't want to lose that. So we need to think about what we've learned from this, take it forward, and now we have the ability to present these platforms on an international level, which is a whole new market for us that has been created over this time. So my message would be to focus forward and look for the possibilities that have been created and build from that.
Absolutely. Well, Robyn, Charles, Bernie, thank you so much for your incredible insight. Very uplifting, exciting thoughts about the future of education. Thank you.
Thank you.
To everybody watching us at home or at the office, thank you so much for being with us. As always, we hope that this conversation has inspired you to take the next steps, and we look forward to being with you again on the Boardroom.
Thank you.